So I just use the navigation keys, is that right? So, I timed this out at 10 minutes and 48 seconds and when I was half asleep, but rushing. So we'll see what happens here. So I'm going to try to talk really quickly about, my process a little bit here because I think that's kind of appropriate. So a lot of the work I've done recently, I don't have my notes in front of me. A lot of my work that I've done recently has been, I guess for the last 15 years, has been kind of based on the work of Etienne Jules Marey, who a 19th century physiologist, father of motion pictures, and other things. He's most famous, I think, for images like this, which he called chronophotography, which are multiple exposures on a single frame. These are somewhere in the 1880s, I think, is when he was doing this. But I'm most interested in his pneumatics. Before he was doing this, he was using these pneumatic sensing systems instead of photography to try and understand how people and animals moved. Here he's got birds hooked up. This is his basic system. You've got a tambour, as he called them, little drum. And this little thing that looks like a bell in the foreground is actually a sensor. A sensor. And that one, is sending impulses out to the recorder there, which I've got the arrow on, which is writing, actually probably scratching, soot off of a piece of wax paper that's moving through there. And the most interesting thing I'm interested in is his history of medical imaging. Marey is also the father of medical imaging. So here's his pulse meter, and here's his simulation of normal and abnormal heart action. And this led directly to the piece that I'm going to show you most about. And these are some experiments I did trying to figure out how to use Marey's ideas to make something that would, resonate for me. And I really didn't know what I was doing at this point, so I was videoing it, which is very rare. I don't have video of my stuff in process. But here I've got analyzing attitude. My friend Zhigang is on this stool, and as he's moving back and forth, his butt is making these, those tambours send air pulses out to these riders, and they're riding his path, as it were, as they're measuring his attitude, which one's leaning. And then, this is a little remote release mechanism, which we had activated for a brief period of time, working off a stool here in the marble run. I think the stool was the weak point. It kept breaking. So none of these things actually made it into my final piece. But this is another thing I've discovered is necessary, is to make lots of parts. And I guess this is in a way like what Scott was talking about, making supplies. So I was casting all sorts of latex organs for my heart simulation. This one is made from an eggplant, cast around an eggplant. Oh, no, I'm sorry. That one was, this is the eggplant. That one was a yam. Can't remember my vegetables anymore. This was a balloon, not that exotic, but, fruits and vegetables are important. This is a little wax thing I made. I think, this is my favorite organ is the Chayote, which is kind of like a prickly pear, potato-y kind of thing that my neighbor has growing all over my backyard. So now I'm trying to make Marey's system. I've got this board, and I'm trying to figure out now how am I going to activate this. So this is the first crude iteration at activating it, but these strings wound up pulling themselves right through the organs and tearing them in half. So I came up with a slightly better system. And in fact, we're going to jump to the final version of this piece. Final version, the version that went out into the world first. Yeah, we can get a little more volume. Do I have it here? Yeah. So I added a heartbeat. And this is sort of that privileged sound you would get with your head on someone's chest. So you might also hear their stomach gurgling. And actually, the water in there is really to provide back pressure, so that this organ in a jar will be kind of throbbing. And all of this is being done by the person who stands outside of all this space, cranking the crank. So they don't get to see any of this, but someone else gets to see it, and then they get to take turns. So it's kind of takes two people to work a heart piece, right? Which I think is kind of all right. So this, I'm kind of going to jump fast, of course, but this is a video of sort of the most elaborate Marais-inspired pneumatic piece that I've done. There's a couple on the bench, and it's a piece to measure how well they're getting along together. So, the way they move will determine whether those balls are moving or whether they're just kind of bouncing back and forth. And then also the way they're moving is being recorded by pens on the wall, and the person on the bike is making paper come down. And they get, if they move left to right, they also get to blow in the ear of the person on the bike. So you get a little bit of a ménage à trois, I think, which is also important for anything physiological. I don't know, is that true? Well, anyway, so not all my pieces are Marais-inspired. This is a piece about death. It's a coffin you can crank yourself into and out again. And but you can talk to people who are still left around over tin can telephones. So it's actually quite pleasant in the coffin. It's, especially during an opening, I would like to hide out in there. This is an unexpected feature, the knots glowing.
Hello? Is there anyone there? Hello? Who's in there? Hello?
So I have these long, the sound is actually going over the long springs. It's there's a canning jar lid, so they're tin can telephones. Canning jar lid in each horn, and the canning jar lid is pushing the spring, and there are a few spots where it's got a, it's got an amplifier and a piezo picking things up, but that run that we were talking and the run in and out of the coffin are both acoustic. I just wanted this piece in some different settings with nicer wall colors, so the wood kind of jumps off the wall really nicely, creates nice effects. Of course, it's good even with white walls. And then when I was in Rotterdam, the photographer brought his dogs in, and when his wife went into the coffin, the dogs ran around the coffin 3 or 4 times looking for where she had disappeared to, and then they, whimpering and whining, and then they settled down to wait for her resurrection. Which she kept them waiting, So a little bit about my last piece, which is I had a title for it called The Theory of Entanglement, and so I thought I would work on trying to make some kind of knitting machine that would be powered by people working together somehow. So I started looking at patent drawings, and then I took apart toy knitting machines, and then I started making one in my basement. And the only reason that I have pictures of this in process is because this was a commission for a place in Liverpool, and they wanted to see where their money was going. So I kept taking pictures to show them, oh, yes, I'm making progress. I've got a few pictures in here that I didn't send them, as you'll see. So here's my knitting machine, all wood, of course, and except for the metal track to raise and lower the needles. And I couldn't get it to knit. It would sort of knit, and then it would drop a whole row of half a row of stitches, and I couldn't quite figure it out. But meanwhile, I had to keep going. I didn't send them this picture. I had to keep going on, so I moved it up to my living room. So you're getting a tour of my house here, and I set up a clutch mechanism because I wanted this thing to be contingent on all this action to be contingent in some way. And I got it to knit because I realized I had to cheat. I had to do the first 2 rows by myself, and then once the first 2 rows were in, it would automatically knit without me. There's a close-up of the needles. And in my shop, meanwhile, while I moved it upstairs, I'm making the powertrain. And here it is in Liverpool, flying above people's heads. And, and here's a little video of the piece going up, literally. There are 2 bikes, actually, it winds up, but at this point when we're installing, we only have 1 bike on. I just wanted to see if the damn thing would work. I had no idea whether it would work. And I have this contingent thing so that you sit on a couch. If you don't sit on the couch, then no knitting happens, even if the bikers are biking. But you might have noticed those 2 bikers, they had to kind of find the right speed to bike together. One of them has to bike faster than they want to, and the other one has to bike slower than they want to. And it's almost always men that seem to not be syncing up with their partners. But
yes, going down to them there.
The guy videoing this is looking for the couch clutch mechanism here, which is... which actually, as soon as he gets the camera on it, they get up off the couch and it releases the clutch. So you don't get to see it working through the knitting. But I've got a little kind of, this is in my, some of this video is from my house, not from Liverpool. But you can see it knitting. Now, actually in Liverpool, it knitted much slower. It would do 1 line in 20 minutes, 1 line of knitting. And here it's doing about 1 line of knitting every minute. But by the end of the show, it had gotten to the floor, beyond the floor. This kind of slowing things down, I really quite like that gesture, because I'm always rushing all the time, and I guess I'm trying to slow myself down. So here it was in Rotterdam, where we had to make a couch, although I don't have the picture of it. We had to make a couch out of MDF to look like it'd be the same size and shape as the one in Liverpool. And then I thought I'd close with this piece, which is sort of what happened to that stool from the first video. See, now I've got it so that it's pumping air into these cheek set that you're wearing on your head. And it's a really wonderful sensation, really. It's kind of like, like you're having sex with yourself. But all your clothes are on and your hands are not doing anything particular. Anyway, and everyone has that smile. And I think this is the true origin of the Mona Lisa smile, this kind of enigma of where did she get that smile. Anyway, I just thought I'd close with this little thing, which is kind of, it's about science really, but it could be about making, So he says, yes, I know that, Sydney. Everybody knows that. But look, 4 wrongs squared minus 2 wrongs to the 4th power divided by this formula do make a right. So I think that's kind of what I do. I square those wrongs. So thanks.